talk about what our big takeaways are today. We want you to be comfortable using our ROC website. We want applicants to avoid common application errors. So we will focus on these throughout the presentation. Again, we want the application process to be as straightforward, as seamless, and as error-free as possible. And we are here to help you and answer your questions. So reach out to us. We have these seminars monthly to answer questions, walk you through the application process, but that doesn't mean that's the only time you can talk to us and ask questions. Post-seminar, if you're working through your application and have questions, definitely reach out to us. That is what our team is here to do. So when we talk about common application errors, we have identified 5 that applicants struggle with. And so we pay extra special attention to these throughout the seminar and beyond. So the first is bond. Second is the Arizona Corporation Commission. The folks listed on the ACC records do not match who is on the application. Third is background checks. Fourth, identification, and last is testing. So again, we will focus heavily on these categories throughout today's seminar, but kind of keep these in your mind. We want to make sure that you have all of the information you need so that you don't get hung up on any of these 5 areas. And you'll see here that we add top 5 in red there to draw your eyes to that and pay attention, because this stuff is really important. It's all important, but these 5 areas are especially important. So how to submit a license application online. We cannot emphasize that enough. It is convenient to you. You can log on, set up your portal account at a time and place that's convenient for you, be it at home, on your phone, on a tablet. It's accessible. Also, it really helps with minimizing those application errors that we typically see in hard copy mailed and walked-in applications. Currently, we have about 90% of our applicants applying through the portal. So please consider applying through the portal. And when we talk about setting up a portal account, we've got a couple of quick videos here for you to watch. You'll also receive links to these videos so that you can revisit them. But the first is creating an account. Oh, I got ahead of myself. It's not time for videos yet. Let's talk about what you need to create a portal account. You'll need your authorized representative's information, which includes their full name, date of birth, valid email address. Can't emphasize that enough. Make sure it's an address that is checked regularly. And as you see with different inboxes, oftentimes there is a junk inbox or promotions. Be sure that you're checking those areas if we are sending you emails. Preferred method of contact, and then you'll need to choose some security questions as you get ready to set up your portal account. We'll need information related to your business entity, which includes the type of entity or the type of business, the name of the company or the name of the sole proprietor and partners, the Arizona Corporation Commission file number if you're an LLC or corporation. Again, a valid email address, cannot stress that enough, your physical business address and phone number. So make sure you've got all of this information when you get ready to set up your portal account. In order to access our portal, you will visit our website at roc.az.gov. You'll click on My Account. We just recently freshened up our website, so it's got a new look and feel. We're very excited about that and continue to make updates to the website. So get acquainted with our website if you haven't already done so. From the homepage, you'll click on My Account, circled here in red. All right, now it's time for those videos. Just a quick disclaimer, this video has not been updated to reflect our new look and feel of the website, but don't want you to get hung up on that, because once you get to the portal is the same. And here's our first video on how to create an online portal account.
If you're logging into the ROC online customer portal after November 15th, 2021, you will need to create a new account even if you previously had one. Click the Register Here button to create your account. Next, you'll need to add your name, email address, date of birth, government-issued ID number, social security number, a preferred method of communication, and a phone number. Next, you're going to need to go check your email. If you don't see the Welcome to AZ ROC email in your inbox, please check your spam folder. And look, there it is, Welcome to AZ ROC. There will be a link in the email to help you set your password. If the link is not clickable, just copy it and paste it in the search bar. Next, you're going to need to create a password. It needs to be 10 characters with at least one letter and at least one number. You'll need to enter the password twice. Now that you've made your account, you're ready to use the ROC Online Customer Portal.
All right, and then the next short video is how to connect your business to the portal account that you just created.
To connect your ROC Online Customer Portal account to your business, you will need to click the Add an Entity to Your Account button at the top of the dashboard. If you are already a licensed contractor, the easiest way to add an existing ROC licensed business is by searching with your ROC license number. If you're trying to connect a business entity to your account that is not yet licensed with Arizona Registrar of Contractors, you will need to search for the business entity either using the Arizona Corporation Commission file number, the sole proprietor's name, or the business entity's name. Please follow the instructions and fill out the required fields to help you find your business. Once the business is connected to your account, it'll show up on your dashboard under Business Entities.
All right, and after you've set up your portal account, next you will fill out the application. And at this point, I will hand it over to Maggie to walk us through the application process. Maggie?
Hello, everybody. All right, so we're going to go over some of the important aspects of your application that you are submitting. Keep in mind, the more complete your application is, the faster it can be reviewed and potentially approved. So first, we're going to go over who is the applicant. So how are you going to be applying for your license? So in Arizona, it's a little bit different. We license the entity, not specifically the individual person. So there's a couple different types of ways that you can apply for a license. You can apply as a sole proprietorship or a partnership. If applying as either of those, your entity name will be exactly as it appears on the government ID. If you are applying as a corporation or an LLC, then you will want your application to include your name as it appears on the Arizona Corporation Commission. And then if you are applying as a trust, then we are going to look for that name on the application to match as it appears on the trust certificate. So your license entity name can also contain a DBA. A DBA stands for doing business as. You can contract under a DBA, but only if it is an ROC approved name. which means it must be listed on your Part 1 of the application as well as listed on your bond. It is not required, but we do recommend that you register your DBA with the Secretary of State. And then anytime during the life of the license or during the application, a DBA can be added, removed, or changed. Keep in mind, a DBA is a fictitious name. So your DBA cannot include LLC or corporation in the name. Once you've determined how you're going to apply, you then need to determine which license classification you are going to apply for. So we have quite a few different license classifications. The first thing you're going to want to determine is what kind of scope of work. Are you going to be doing just residential, just commercial, or what we call our dual license, which is both residential and commercial? From there, you'll need to determine, are you looking for general contracting? Are you looking for a specialty such as like roofing or electrical, or are you looking at an engineering license? Once you've determined which classification you're looking for, you can also visit our website. Our website has a list of classifications. It has their descriptions, and we also have a link to our classification requirements that Jesse just posted below in the chat. So every license must have a qualifying party. The qualifying party is going to be the individual who is listed on the license that is responsible for taking and passing the statutes and rules exam, the trade exam, providing the experience. So that would be either hands-on supervisory work of the scope that they are applying for. The qualifying party also needs to be listed on the application. So that means that we need their name, date of birth, social. We will need a copy of a driver's license or a government ID. It's really important that we have a good address, phone number, and email because correspondence is sent out in those using those methods. Also, we would need to know their title. So whether they are the qualifying party, whether they also hold ownership and what that ownership is, and then a background check. So the background checks must be done through our background check vendor, and the background check needs to be completed within 90 days from when we receive your application. So anything past that 90 days time frame would need a new background check. Qualifying party is in part 2 of the application. If they are a owner, so if the person is a qualifying party and holds ownership or is going to be listed in another capacity on the license, they would also need to be listed on part 3. Sorry, Jesse, I just happened to see a chat come up at the bottom. All right. So your exams. So the qualifying party is required to have 2 exams. If you are an in-state applicant, meaning you were on an Arizona license that was active within the last 5 years as the qualifying party, then you can waive the statutes and rules exam using that prior license from Arizona. If the qualifying party is on a Arizona license with the same classification as you are now applying for and was active in the last 5 years, then the waiver can be used to waive the trade exam as well. If you are an out-of-state applicant, meaning maybe you just moved here or you had another license in another state, the statutes and rules exam cannot be waived. That is not an option. You can't waive it using an out-of-state license. You would have to take that statutes and rules exam. The great thing is we have revamped our statutes and rules exam, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But there has been some changes to that. For an out-of-state applicant, if you hold an out-of-state license that is comparable to the license you're applying for here, and the qualifying party was also listed in the same capacity on that license, the license was active within the last 5 years, then you can submit a waiver to request that the trade exam be waived. Your waiver will be reviewed, so you will submit your waiver with your application. And then when your application is reviewed, we will review the waiver to determine if the trade can be waived or not. If for some reason your out-of-state license cannot be used to waive the trade, then we would give you a time frame to take the test if needed. So like I said, we did have some changes to our examinations. So the Statutes and Rules exam is now a training course. It is an online training course and exam. It is done through a company called G-Metrics. It is a computer-based training module. You can save and exit, come back if you're not able to finish it. It is not a proctored exam, meaning there is not somebody monitoring you taking that test. For the trade exam and the solar exams, those are offered through PSI. Those are going to be proctored exams. They are offered online and in person, but they are a proctored exam, meaning there is somebody monitoring your exam. We do have contact information for both of those courses. If you are not able to register online for them, you can contact either G-Metrics or PSI. So a little bit more information on the Statutes and Rules exam. So like I said, the Statutes and Rules exam is a training course and exam that covers the contracting laws in Arizona. It is only offered online through G-Metrics. Like I said, it is a self-paced, so you can save and return at your convenience. The cost for that is $54. You do not have to purchase additional study materials. We do offer a free downloadable Statutes and Rules book for you to use throughout the course. So you don't have to purchase additional Statutes and Rules book information. We do have the link to the G-Metrics website to register for the exam. Also keep in mind with the Statutes and Rules exam, if you don't pass it the first time, you can go right back in and take it again. So if you go to our website, you can find those links under applying for a license, or the licensing forms where you will see our classification requirements and the PSI candidate information bulletin, which will lead you to that PSI website to register for your exam. All right, so the trade exams and solar exams, so those are going to be specific to the trade that you are applying for. Those are offered by PSI. They are online and in person, so you can choose which you would prefer. These are a supervised, so a proctored exam, and they are timed. The cost for your trade exams is going to be about $66 for a trade exam and $40 for a solar. For the trade exams, there is additional study material that can be purchased and used during your exam. So again, if you go to our website and you follow the link for the applying for a license under the past examinations, it will give you, you can also find the link to that PSI candidate information bulletin. For the trade exams, that is going to be key. That's where you want to go, because that gives you an outline of your exam, links to your study materials, and then you can also find the link to PSI to register online as well. And this is just a quick view of what that candidate information bulletin looks like. So if you click on that applying for a license, once you get to about page 14, you will start to see the license classifications. From there, you're going to want to select the classification that you are applying for, and then it will give you that content outline for your exam, as well as the references that can be used both in the test and not used in the test. There are some that can be used in the test and some cannot. So just keep note of that when you pull up your bulletin. So we know for sure your qualifying party is required to be on your license. Every license must hold a qualifying party. But let's talk about who else needs to be listed on your application. So if you are an LLC, you will need to have any owners of 25% or more. If you are a member managed LLC, any members who are listed on EZCC will need to be included. If you are a manager managed LLC, any managers listed on EZCC will need to be included in your application. And we'll go over shortly what exactly they need to be listed on the application. Same thing for corporation. We would need any owners of 25% or more. Any president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, or any functional equivalent of those officers, we would also need, as well as any directors who are listed. If your entity is a tiered entity, so meaning your company is owned by another company, we are going to need an organizational chart. So as you can see here on the example that we have, Red Corporation is owned by Blue LLC and Green Corporation. We need to show every tier of ownership that holds 25% or more ownership of the applicant. Some important things to note is any persons who are listed on the tiered entity chart that own 25% or more will also need to be included on the application. The tiered entity chart also needs to include the addresses of all entities or persons listed. It also needs to include the ownership percentages. We need a signature from an authorized associate on the account. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you see that little attestation there. We also need that attestation on the chart itself when you submit that. Your tiered entity charts can be submitted with your application, and we will review those and let you know if there's any changes that need to be made. All right, so let's talk about those people that we mentioned will need to be listed on your application. So those owners of 25% or more, directors, officers, members, or managers. Those individuals will need to be listed in the Part 3 of your application. So that will include their name, date of birth, social security number, a good address, phone number, and email. Like I said previously, those are big key parts of your application because that's how we contact you. We also need a driver's license or government ID that is valid and legible. So it cannot be expired and we need to be able to read it. Your part of the application will also list your title or position, any percentage of ownership that you hold, and then again, those background checks that were completed within the last 90 days. All right, so all background checks must be done through our specific background check vendor. It is called People G2. So there is a link on our website to the background check information. You will follow that link. I want to say background check fees roughly start around $16 to $18. That can increase depending on if court documents are required, if additional information needs to be obtained. We don't have a specific time frame on how long it will take your background check to be completed. Again, there's other factors that can play into that, whether or not they need court documents, or if a court is closed, if somebody moved multiple times and they have to kind of double check those different addresses. There's different factors that play into the price and time frame that it takes for your background check to be completed. So start your background checks as one of your first things you do. Like I said, it can take anywhere from 2 to 30 days to process a completed background check. Things like name changes, changes of address, charges against you, any additional item can play a factor into that taking a little bit longer. Keep in mind, anybody listed on the application must submit a completed background check receipt from People G2 that is dated within the last 90 days from when we received your application. Once the background check is complete, then your receipt is available. So if you submitted your background check, it hasn't been completed, then you need to wait until that background check has been completed, then you will receive your receipt. Your background check, your application cannot be approved until those background checks are complete. So like I said, start those background checks, because if they take a little bit longer, you don't want to have to be held up waiting on a background check. Again, we are looking for that completed date. So if you submitted the request for your background check in June, but the background check wasn't actually completed until September, the September date is what we'll be looking at to make sure it was completed within 90 days. All right. Okay, so we went over a lot of information. Let's kind of regroup a little bit. So we covered who the qualifying party is. So qualifying party can be an owner or an employee who is regularly employed by the licensee. The qualifying party is the person who is responsible for taking and passing exams, has the knowledge of the scope of work, has the skills and experience to perform the work that is going to be done under the license. Other individuals who are required to be on your application and your license are going to be any owners of 25% or more, those members or managers, depending on how your LLC is constructed, as well as corporate officers, directors. Keeping in mind, in most cases, anybody who's going to be named on Arizona Corporation Commission is going to need to be listed on your application. Also, those individuals are going to need to provide their information on the parts of the application, valid and legible IDs, and those background checks as well.
Maggie, do you want to take a moment to answer the questions that have come up in the chat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
I think we did answer everything except for the last one. There's just confusion on the background checks, Maggie.
does the 2 to 30 days of processing count against the 90 days? So it is 90 days from when your background check is complete. So if your background check is completed, meaning you got the receipt that your background check has been completed, if you got it today, your background check is good for 90 days.
And then their second part of that question is, what if somebody else in their group, the background check has not completed?
All background checks have to be completed. So if we are waiting on maybe somebody's background check is pending, or it's, they're still gathering information, we would hold the application as long as we could, keeping in mind, we do have that 60-day statutory requirement to approve or deny. So we do try to emphasize that you do your background checks before submitting your application, because you want to make sure that those background checks get completed.
I'm sorry, can I don't think the question. So if there's two applicants, one was approved in July and then another applicant is still not approved, is it going to void out the applicant that was approved his 90 days? Because if it's only good and approved or if it's only good for 90 days once approved, what if another applicant is not approved before the 90 days of the first applicant is my question. Like, I understand that we're not gonna submit an application without the background checks, but will it void out the approved background check if it exceeds the 90 days to receive the other background check for another applicant?
Yes, so each person's background check is going to be their own. So person A, their background check is good for 90 days. If you've submitted person B's background check and it still hasn't been completed and you're reaching that 90 days, then I would reach out to People G2 and see like what the status is. Sometimes they may need additional information from the person who has submit their request. But most cases it does not take that long. So I would follow up with People G2, but yes, person A's background check is completely separate. So his background check is only within those 90 days.
Okay, so I would be able to, so People G2 emails me or the applicant once a week and says that they're still processing the application, which is why I was wondering if he would be able to upload his documents onto his portal to help ease whatever information the person doing the
Background check?
investigating. Yeah.
Okay. So the way a background check works is People G2 is going to acquire all of their information that they're researching. So if the background check is still stuck with People G2, then you would want to contact People G2 to see what needs to be submitted, what are they waiting on, why is it taking so long? As far as on our end, once the application is submitted, if the background check comes back as needing review, because say, for example, maybe there's a felony, then those documents would be uploaded to the application. But as far as the background check end goes, you would want to contact them to see if maybe there's something you can do on your end to scoot the process along. But I don't believe a lot of times they're waiting on documents from different courts. So you would have to contact them to see if there's something that you could provide them to kind of make the process a little bit faster.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think we answered what if it takes longer. We have a license from the state of California. What is the reciprocity agreement with the state of Arizona? What application do we need to fill out? Okay, so Arizona does not have direct reciprocity with any state. What we do offer is that you can submit an out-of-state waiver to potentially waive your trade exam and your experience. So the kind of application that you fill out is going to be based on how you are applying. If you are applying as an LLC, you will submit an LLC application. If you're applying as a corporation, you will submit a corporation application. Same thing with like sole proprietorship or a partnership. When you submit your application, if you're doing it by mail or in person, there is an actual waiver that you can fill out. If you're doing it through our online portal, you can select to waive the trade exam and experience from an out-of-state license, and then you will be prompted to complete the out-of-state license fields with your out-of-state license information. So when you're using an out-of-state license to waive the trade exam or experience, we're looking for a couple of things. Is the qualifying party the same person? Is the scope comparable? So the same work that they could do under their California license is what they can do here. Was that license active in the last 5 years? And then we just want to double check to make sure there's not any unresolved complaints. As long as California is pretty similar to Arizona as far as our license classifications go. They do have, I believe they call it the RMO, which is like their qualifying party. So as long as we can verify all of those things, then the waiver can be used to waive the trade exam and the experience, but you still have to fill out the application, all the parts of the application. You would just submit that waiver in place of the trade exam. Jason said he started the application and got stuck. Yes, Jason, my information is at the beginning of the chat. Please feel free to email or call me and I can walk you through the application.
Sorry,
No,
I've been answering questions, but I cannot
good.
access the entire group. I also wanted Jason or anyone else to know that our phone queue people can answer any questions you have and help you get unstuck. I only say that because Maggie and I are not always available. So if you're in the midst and you're stuck somewhere, please call our phone queue.
Yes. And then I think one more question. Should we take the exams before applying? Yes. So when you are submitting your application, you want to make sure that your application is complete before you send it to us. Our goal is to get you approved and out there into the world working as a licensed contractor as soon as possible. If you send an application into us or you submit it online and it is not complete, then we have to hold it and we have to wait until we get the rest of the items that are complete in order to complete your application. So the best thing for you to do is to make sure that you follow all the steps. We have an applying for a license checklist on our website. Follow those steps on that checklist and submit your completed application. That way we can kind of we can almost guarantee that your license will be quickly reviewed and approved as fast as possible. All right, I think that's all for the questions for now. All right. Oh, one more question. Our qualifying person, but a Canadian issued government ID, not US, is that a problem? So when you are, so somebody asked about somebody being a Canadian. So we are looking, there is a list on our website of valid and legible IDs, or excuse me, of IDs that we accept. So things like a government issued ID, a passport. There's a couple different items on there that you can use to submit as your ID. If somebody is not a US citizen, but they are going to be listed on the license, you'll just want to make sure that you put on there that they are not a citizen. If they are not a citizen, they do have to apply under an LLC or a corporation. All right, so another part of your application is going to be the disclosures. So we are asking you to disclose a couple different things. We are looking to see if you have been listed on a prior license that was revoked or suspended. We are asking you if you have ever been cited or convicted of any unlicensed activity. We will also ask you to disclose if you have any felony convictions or pending charges. This is going to be in the disclosure section of your application. So you will mark those boxes or check them off as yes or no. And then if you selected yes to any of them, additional information would be requested from you at that time, such as a felony disclosure or an unlicensed activity disclosure form or a prior license disclosure form. If you are submitting your felony or criminal history, we are going to be looking for some documentation for review. So some of the required documents that you would get to us would be an indictment or a complaint, any court findings or a plea agreement, any kind of pre-sentencing report, documentation, completion of your sentence, any restitution that was paid, or restoring of your civil rights. Some additional items that you can kind of submit would be any kind of letters or references, any kind of addiction program or recovery program, any kind of personal, professional, or educational achievements as well that could kind of play into the decision and the review of any kind of prior criminal history. All right, so once you've gone through all of these steps, you've registered your entity with AZCC, you have all the people on your license, your qualifying party has taken tests, everything is ready to go. You're going to submit your application with all your documents and the fees. So one of the documents that will need to be included in your application is your bond. So there's a couple different types of bonds that we accept. A surety bond, which a lot of times I say is kind of like car insurance. So you pay like your premium every month. A cash bond that would need to be submitted either by cash, check, or you can come in and do that. You can mail it into us. Also a signed certificate of deposit. So with those bonds, each license is required to have a minimum coverage. That minimum coverage is based on your estimated volume of work that you plan to perform in Arizona. It's also going to be based on your license classification. So two things that you need to keep in mind, your estimated volume of work and your classification. And then we're going to take a look at the bond amounts and how that looks on your bond form as well. Keep in mind, bonds are the #1 most common error in applications. So pay close attention to these next couple of slides because we'll go over key important parts. So your bond must be submitted on the ROC license bond form. This is the bond form that is provided for the surety bonds. This bond form needs to include your bond number, the full name of the applicant, and the DBA. So your DBA does need to be included on there. We also need your license classification. So for example, this one is for a CR7, which is a carpentry. Also your penal sums. So on the right-hand side of the bond form, you'll see where it says penal sums. If you are applying for a dual license, meaning your license covers both commercial and residential, it needs to look similar to this example on the screen, where it has the separate penal sums divided out per residential and commercial. So this one, for example, has a coverage of $4,250 in residential and $2,500 in commercial. Also, your effective date and signed seal date need to be within 6 months. If it is a future date, we cannot approve it until that date is here. So I would suggest not sending a future date, but it does need to be within 6 months. Also making sure that it is notarized and signed by the attorney in fact and has the seal of the bond surety company. All right, so I mentioned calculating your bond coverage. So this is the breakdown of the minimum requirements for your bond coverage. So we went over a CR7 carpentry license. So the estimated residential specialty volume was 200,000 and the estimated commercial volume was going to be 50,000. So that would put at the minimum requirements for the bond for that license to be the $4,250 in residential and the $2,500 in commercial for a total of $6,750. For the second example we have is a KB1, which is a dual building contractor. So the example given here is they had an estimated residential volume of 500,000 and an estimated general volume of 2 million. So that would put their bond requirement at the 9,000 for residential and 50,000 for commercial for a total of 59,000 in bond coverage. All right, so if you have employees, you are required to provide us with your workers' compensation. So this is included in the application. It's included in the application. I believe it's on your disclosures section. If you submit it through the portal, it's going to ask you if you plan on having employees, yes or no, and then it will give you an option based on the answer to your question. So if you are going to have employees, you need to have workers' compensation. What we're looking for is the policy number and the company that's issuing the policy. Also, if you are going to select self-insurance, we would just require that proof of self-insurance as well. Otherwise, if you don't plan on having employees and you fall within our exemptions, then you will select no and select that exemption. All right, there's also some other documentation that can sometimes be submitted with your new license application, but isn't always. So some of those things would be a solar warranty. If you're going to be doing solar work, we would ask that you provide us with a copy of a solar warranty. There is a link on our website that gives you an example of a solar warranty and what that could look like. If you're applying for a license and you want to cancel a prior license, you can submit that at the time that you submit your license application. You can also request to inactivate a prior license or disassociate the QP from a prior license as well. Those items can be submitted with your new license application. You can also request that they be processed upon approval of your new license. All right, and kind of the last part of your application is going to be your fees. So again, this is going to go back to which license classification are you applying for. Different license classifications have different fees. Also keep in mind your residential licenses will have that recovery fund assessment fee as well. So this fees page can also be found on our website. If you want to look at that ahead of time to kind of know what kind of fees you're going to be needing in order to complete your application, those will be required at the time you are submitting your application. If you mail in an application and it doesn't have fees with it, then it's going to be rejected. So make sure you know what those fees are and they get submitted with the application itself. Somebody just asked, how long is a license good for? So your license is active and will need to be renewed every 2 years. If your license is not renewed by your renewal date, it would then suspend, and then your license is given an expiration date. So if your license is suspended for, say, like non-renewal and it doesn't get renewed by your expiration date, then the license would expire and be considered what we call like a dead license. Any kind of suspension can be removed or resolved. But if it is an expired or a canceled license, those are considered dead licenses. And if you wanted to reactivate, you would have to reapply. But your renewal for your license is going to be due every 2 years. And that will be listed on your ID cards that you get, as well as on your license information on our contractor search. Somebody else asked, are any of the fees refunded if the application is rejected? So if your application is rejected, meaning we did not review it, we could not accept it because, say, maybe your fees were missing or your corporation commission status was not accurate, then we would return all of your fees. If we have reviewed your application and we are returning it because items were not submitted by the due date, then we would return all of the fees except for the application fee. Does the bond need to be obtained from Arizona or we submit ours from California? So your bond can be purchased through any surety bond company that is authorized to issue surety bonds in Arizona. Keep in mind, your bond that you are submitting with your new license application needs to be a new bond. It cannot be a bond that was previously used on a license and now you're adding this new application license to it. It has to be a new bond. All right, I think that's all the questions for right now. So just keeping in mind those big items that we said we see a lot as errors in applications. So your bond, making sure that bond form is complete. Your DBA, the biggest thing that we see is the name does not match. So if you are a sole proprietorship, your name needs to match exactly as it appears on your license. If you are an entity or you have a DBA, it needs to match exactly on your bond as it does on your license application. Also, people not matching. So referencing that list of individuals who are required to be on there, any owners of 25% or more. Also, anybody who's going to be listed on Arizona Corporation Commission also needs to be listed on your application. Background checks. Every person on the license needs a background check. Those background checks, we're looking at that completed date is within 90 days from when we received your application. A valid and legible ID, we can see it, it's not expired. And then your testing information, your statutes and rules exam. I cannot emphasize enough how awesome it is and how much we have changed that to make it, a little bit more easily accessible for our contractors. So make sure you get that statutes and rules exam. If you are going to be required to take a trade exam, please make sure you get that testing done. If you fail a trade exam, there is a 30-day waiting period. So keep that in mind. If you fail the trade exam, you have to wait 30 days before you can take it again. Can the DBA be exactly the name as the company? Correct. So the DBA can be anything you want. It just cannot contain LLC or corporation in it. And I think that's all the questions.
All right. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks.
All right. Well, lots of great questions. So thank you to everybody who asked questions. It's always great to be able to get those answered now rather than later. So just a quick reminder to please check your email. We will be sending you a survey regarding today's seminar. We want your feedback. Did you feel that we covered everything adequately? Could we have expanded on a particular subject? We definitely want to know. YouTube link. We are recording today's seminar, so we will be sending a copy of the recording to you that you can review and revisit later, as well as a copy of all of the slides that we shared. A resource sheet. Jesse will also include a contact sheet with everybody's information on there so that you can reach out to the team, as well as links to the 2 online portal demos. One thing that we do ask is as you fill out and submit your application that you mark that you attended today's seminar. We are tracking that, and we do know for a fact that applicants who attend these seminars submit better applications, for a lack of a better word, just an application with less errors, if not no errors. That is definitely the goal of these seminars. So again, thank you very much for being on today's seminar. We do have a few minutes. Our team will stay online to answer any questions that